When you're talking about that, just immediately I think, isn't that why we drink? Because we can't cope? I mean it like that. For many of us, probably most of us, and me especially, and I'll talk about me, is that I drank because there were things I couldn't cope with. And when people say things like, because I resisted it for a while too. Alcohol wasn't my problem, it was my solution, right?
Absolutely.
When I first heard that, I thought, oh, that's bullshit. Alcohol was my problem. I drank too much, right? I couldn't stop drinking. Until I really, really did a lot of work and understood my alcoholism, again, it's different for other people, but my alcoholism, I realized that, oh no, alcohol was absolutely my solution. It was my coping mechanism, right?
This is the Sober Friends podcast. My name is Matt J. Steve is here helping me out. What's going on, Steve?
Good morning, Matt.
Here's what we're here for. People who are sober curious, people already on that path, people who have just gotten this sent to them, I don't know, because they think their friends think they have a problem or a joke or whatever, but you're here for whatever reason. I went down a rabbit hole this week. This is an old Sports Illustrated article I read in 2021. Steve, do you remember the sports writer and sportscaster Pete Axthelm?
Vaguely, yeah.
He was a sports writer, 70s, 80s. He was on NBC. He later joined ESPN when they started their NFL coverage. And I remember him very vividly, but this was at the end of his life. And he wasn't the Pete Axthelm that he was before. And what I didn't know at the time is that Pete had an alcohol problem, pretty famous alcohol problem. And he died early in 1991 at the age of 47. In my young eyes,
wow.
He looked incredibly old.
Yeah.
But he wasn't, 47, younger than me, that I am now. And he died of alcoholism. And he was well known for his drinking. He was known for his really brilliant sports writing. He was good on TV, but by the end, he was falling apart. And when he was in the hospital one of the times, somebody said, you got to quit. And he said, I tried for 3 days, and I couldn't cope. And really, he just kind of killed himself. He would rather be dead than be alive and not drinking. And I could relate to that feeling when I thought about quitting. And I am sure a lot of people, before they quit, could relate to that of, I cannot see life without alcohol, so why quit? And that becomes, how do you get over that hurdle?
When you're talking about that, just immediately I think, isn't that why we drink? Because we can't cope?
Yep.
I mean it like that. For many of us, probably most of us, and me especially, and I'll talk about me, is that I drank because there were things I couldn't cope with. And, when people say things like, because I resisted it for a while too. Alcohol wasn't my problem, it was my solution, right?
Absolutely.
When I first heard that, I thought, oh, that's bullshit. Alcohol was my problem. I drank too much, right? I couldn't stop drinking. Until I really, really did a lot of work and understood my alcoholism, again, it's different for other people, but my alcoholism, I realized that, oh no, alcohol was absolutely my solution. It was my coping mechanism. Right, because here's what happens, and it still happens today, and I talk about it, and I talked about it with another AA this week, and we were talking about going to meetings, and I said, we were talking about going out, and I've gone out to a lot of meetings recently, and one thing I said to him, and this is the guy who's got, 6-7 years of sobriety, and we talked about staying sober. I've used the example of recently where my wife said, I told my wife, if I could stay sober without going to meetings, I would, which surprised her. And we were talking about that a little bit, and he goes, yeah, and the other thing is, I go to meetings so I can be nice. And again, this is me. I go, because the first thing that happens, I don't go pick up a drink. If I stop going to meetings or I lose my program, I don't pick up a drink. I become an asshole. And so what alcohol did for me was when I hit that point where I was going to become an an asshole, I went and got a drink, which made me feel better. Right? So, yeah, it was a coping mechanism for many of us. And for me in particular. And it took me a long time to figure that out. And I can see that somebody who knew might be coming in, excuse me, might say, I don't know how I'm going to cope without my alcohol. Yeah, how many times have we said, oh, I've had a tough day. I need a drink. I need to relax. I know I've done it. So it's a jumping off point that can be difficult. It can be difficult to jump off at that point and then try to figure out how you're going to cope without something that you've used for so long or depended on for so long, or maybe not even that long, but you depended on for a while.
For some people, it's a cliff.
Yeah, I agree.
I would say for most people. Most people don't get sober who need to get sober.
Right.
And it is a cliff that you cannot get past. That you're going to jump off the cliff and you're going to hit the rocks below. And if you're really in that place where you've tried for 3 days and your mind is going bonkers, this is where you also do need to bring in a doctor.
Yep.
Perhaps detox, perhaps rehab. The way Pete Axthelm was drinking, doing it himself was life-threatening. Just hearing how he was drinking. And that may be the case with you. You might be in a case where you need to do this with the help of a doctor. It's also hard to admit you have a problem to a doctor. But I remember that, especially, I think, socially. I didn't think I could socialize with people. I didn't have the courage to talk because I was so afraid of other people that I needed booze. What was I going to do in a social situation with other people, especially when booze was around? How was I going to get through that? Booze was my coping mechanism, especially in that instance.
It definitely, I was thinking about that when I was talking, how much it is a cliff for many of us. It's just looking down thinking, I can't do this. And as soon as you talked about this, I thought about our buddy John and even David, who I hike with. And I think about when I started hiking with these guys were experienced hikers, right? And I wasn't. I always wanted to. I did a lot of outdoors, but I wasn't experienced. And I'm talking about big hikes up in the White Mountains, if you're from the Northeast, up in New Hampshire, up in Maine, some of the bigger mountains. And I was always like, no, I can't do that, right? That's how it was. And John was always like, oh, John and I hiked together a lot, and John would go, oh, you can do that. Like John, and I leaned on John's confidence for a long time when I hiked. And especially coming down, like I tell people all the time, I can climb uphill all day long. But coming down is a different thing. You see, uphill, you don't see the danger. Downhill, you see the danger. Like, oh, if I fall here, I could start tumbling for a long time, And I was thinking about jumping off the cliff, and then I was thinking about walking down a trail that's sort of steep and scary, and the footing isn't that good, and how it's one step at a time. I mean that honestly. Like, I go down. I'm a very, very slow descender when I come down the trail, especially if it's any type of weird footings or stuff like that. Very slow. And it's one step at a time. And it's the same thing when you get to this point where you feel like, oh, I can't cope. I don't know how I'm going to cope. It becomes a one day at a time program. Again, one of these silly things that we talk about. Some people love them. Some people hate them. And then all of a sudden you realize, like, there's a reason why we say them. It's one day at a time, right? The truth is, you really don't need to jump off that cliff, but you do need to make a decision to start to, make some changes. And just like my analogy with my hiking buddies, that's where the fellowship comes in for me, right? That's where you can go into a fellowship or a program, and you can do it different programs, but for us it's AA. And you find those people who can tell you, like, no, it's okay. Trust me, it's okay. Like, you're going to be okay. That's what I needed when I was hiking. Like, you're going to be okay. You can do this, right? And I went to a meeting. I'll just give this story. I went to a meeting. Let me see. It was I don't know what day was it. Today is Sunday, so Saturday wasn't last night. It was it was Friday. I didn't go to my men's meeting because we got moved, and I went up to Pathfinders, a local club here, and there was a woman who was sharing. She was 42 days sober, clean. She's also an addict, and she was talking about how she came in. She's trying to save her marriage, blah 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 blah. But her husband is an addict, and and I told her, at the end, first of all, I told him, listen, what you're trying to do, trying to get sober while you're living with somebody who's still active, is really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. And I told her, it's not impossible. It's not impossible. You can do it. I know people who've done it. And she's like, that's the first time I shared that. I'm like, well, keep sharing it, right? Keep sharing it. And I told them, you need to go out and find some people. You need to find some people, right, that you can lean on and help you. And I said, if you keep sharing that you're in here and you're living with somebody who's drinking and you're trying to get sober, people will come up to you and they'll have had that shared experience.
Absolutely.
And they will be able to help you through that experience. So I hope she does. 42 days sober is nothing, it's great for her, and I just hope she just keeps working it. But for me, that's the way it works, right? I have to let people know where I'm at, let people know what I'm struggling with, and then in our program, somebody, most of the time, is going to come up to you and go, hey, you got a minute? I went through that too. And here's what I did, right? They're not going to say, this is what most of them are not going to say, this is what you need to do. Some people will try that. But most people are going to say, here's what I did, And I don't know. I'll be forever grateful to the fact that, somebody else told me how to cope, right? Somebody else showed me how to cope with my life struggles without alcohol.
This is a great portion of the big book, or Bill's instruction here, where he does give those instructions. Don't tell people what they should do. Tell your own story,
right,
and let them relate to it. It is great advice, because otherwise you're going to get people defensive.
Yeah.
There are scientific reasons why you feel like you can't cope. And the reality is you can't cope, not by yourself. The alcohol alters your physiology and your emotions. It temporarily numbs your feelings. So you don't want to build skills. They feel like they're coping because the discomfort is dull. Now, over time, the brain learns to expect that alcohol's coming. Nervous system actually becomes more reactive without it. So that initial anxiety without alcohol can intensify the feelings, not because you can't cope, because your body's trained to react that way. So alcohol gives some short-term relief, but it doesn't cultivate actual coping skills. Coping actually means discomfort while you process it, not numbing. So when you're feeling, especially early on, that feeling that this feels awful, it does. But the alcohol is lying. As the alcohol goes away, the alcohol is lying to you. The feelings you have are lies. And it's worth thinking that when you're going through all of those painful emotions and withdrawing from alcohol, this is not how you're going to feel the rest of your life. This is a short period of time where the nervous system is rebelling because it wants what it expects. And it eventually does change, which is why, depending on what your situation is, this may not be physically healthy for you and could be incredibly dangerous to do it on your own without detox. Alcohol withdrawal can kill you, depending on your dependence.
Without question. Without question. So you need to figure that out and do what's necessary. I know plenty of people who had to go to detox for that exact reason. They may have died if they didn't go into detox. Wasn't the case with me. One of the things I've done since I've gotten sober this time is I picked, one of the things I've done is that I had never done before is I started reading, right? Which sounds weird, but I never read a lot as a kid. I didn't read a lot as a young adult or even in my early adulthood. When I got sober this time, I started reading. And one of the things I did pick up and start reading was a lot of stuff on brain function, and especially brain function when it comes to substances, alcohol and drugs. And you touched on it, and I don't want to get into the weeds of it, but it's amazing what alcohol and drugs do to that brain function and how it alters your brain and your reward system, right? That's what it does. And you know, if you've never done if you're sober out there and you just have an interest in reading, there's some reading on it. And it's not fun reading. It's not easy reading, right? It's brain stuff reading, and it takes some work to read it. But there's a book out there. I've suggested it to several people. It's called Never Enough, Never Enough. It's written by this woman who was a cocaine addict and alcoholic and got sober and then just wanted to get out and find out about the brain chemistry of addiction. And she got her doctorate and studied it all. And she wrote this book. And she tells her story. The nice thing about this book, in the beginning of the book, she tells her story and how she was this alcoholic and addict in her 20s, and how like she was just like you and me or anybody else on the street. And it just talks about that. And matter of fact, it's a book that I probably should go out. It's one of those books that I probably should find and probably put in my library. I like some certain books I like to keep in my library. And because I hadn't read that one. It's been 5 or 6 years, maybe more, that I've read that book. But anyway, it does go through that, right? And then that explains exactly what you're talking about. Like, it is a coping mechanism. Like, it's not maybe a coping mechanism. It does, because it does things to your brain and your moods that changes them. And not only does it change them while you're using it, it changes them while you're not using it, right?
Correct.
Because what's happening is your brain has gotten used to that, just like you said a little bit. And then it sits there and it waits and goes, hey, let's do that again. Let's do that again. And right, that's the obsession. Hey, let's do that again. And so the regular chemicals that somewhat keep you balanced, and anybody who suffers from depression or bipolar, I mean, that's the same thing that's happening, and that's why you take drugs to try to fix that. You take chemicals to try to fix that imbalance in your brain. It's the same thing. And I'm not a doctor, and I don't play one on TV, but I've done some reading on it, and if you're out there and you haven't, it might be something interesting to do. Pick up a book. There's several out there now. And this is the whole other thing I started to talk about, as I started to think about, is that this is the change, right? This is the change from Bill's solution in 1939 to 2025. We understand so much of this better than we did before, which is where some of these other programs come in who use some of these other therapies to help people stop drinking. Right. And so there's this whole movement out there of other stuff. But, you know, AA will always be there. And you can do some of this AA fellowship, even if you're doing some other stuff with a doctor. So a lot of changes going on in recovery. But again, I'm old school. I'm AA. It's what works for me. Listen, my wife was in bed last night, and there's a meeting, right? I have a club right up the street that has meetings 3-4 times a day. And I went to my wife. My wife was in bed. I'm like, hey, you going to hang out in bed, watch TV? She goes, yeah. I'm like, all right, I'm going to go. I'm just going to go up, sit in the meeting for an hour, right? It's 5 minutes away from me. And that's what I do. That's what I do, right? And I always see people that I know because it's my comfort place. It's the place where I go and just I feel comfortable.
This is where the 12 steps are really great. As an aside, I'd love to find a doctor who knows who understands alcoholism, and I'd love to pick a doctor's brain around what would you say is different on the idea of addiction and the quote allergy versus what Dr. Silkworth has in the book. I think there is stuff worth updating there, and I'd love to have a doctor on the podcast. Just walk through that about their opinion, first about the doctor's opinion, and what we know now versus what we knew almost 100 years ago. I think that would be incredibly helpful. Those are the places I think the big book could have some updating in a helpful way. And I think there's some stuff around science I'd like to see. Even if we strip away some of the stuff that people may not like about the steps, if we're talking the God stuff. This is where the steps do help you with a true coping mechanism. And they did for me. And I guess I didn't realize this until much later. The steps are really the recipe of and I'm sure Bill didn't think about it this way, but your nervous system is going through a revolt on you. It's telling you lies, and it is in a total panic because it doesn't understand that the substance that it expects to help regulate it is gone. So you need to go through a few things. And at a high level, steps are the step one. My nervous system's going nuts without alcohol, and I can't manage. And step two is I can't do it alone. That's how I look at the higher power. You could look at it as I need God, or you could look at it as I need help to do this, and I'm not enough. And then I need to take some action. And then later on are those steps. One of them is things that are going to really help me get sober are understanding, why did I drink? What are the triggers? Mm-hmm. And then again, I gotta need help with this. I gotta tell somebody, because actually going through that process of I wrote it down and I need to hear it with my own voice and somebody needs to react helps with that. And then saying I need to let it go. Finding those people that I might have hurt to make that right. It's another thing off my nervous system. That is the recipe. The problem with the steps is it's not instantaneous.
Right.
It takes time, so you're going to have to sit with pain for a while. And that's where frequent meetings can come in, and frequent contact with other alcoholics. That gets you through the day-to-day of that initial pain. It helps us who have already gone through this and don't have that pain to help somebody else. It gives us a purpose for still being there.
Yeah, we all need that purpose. We all need to stick around. I engaged with somebody on social media the other day, and just commented. I didn't engage with them. I just commented, and they were talking about how, there's a lot of anti-AA people out there. We talk about this every month. A lot of anti-AA out there.
I don't know if there's a lot of so.
Yeah, maybe
I would change it this way. It's loud.
It's not only it's loud. You're right. Absolutely. You're probably right. Right. And then we live in a world where once you look at one of those things, the algorithm feeds you more. So you're probably right. Yes. Probably not as big as it feels to me, because I do look at those things and I will comment on them. So obviously they're going to feed me more because they want me to engage more. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I just said to this person, because this person said, oh, yeah, once you get better, you can just leave. You don't need it anymore. And I just made the comment, but I said, if everybody leaves once they're better, who's there for the newcomer? Right? Like, who's there? Only sick people are there? Mm-hmm. Like, there's no people to look up to? Role models? There's no people that gets a 40-year coin and you go, holy shit, I can stay sober for 40 years? So, that's the kind of stuff like, no, that's not the way it works. Like, I came in here and somebody spent a lot of time with me. A lot of people spent a lot of time with me, helping me get where I am today. And I just feel like, I totally feel like, I need to give that back. One other thing I told this young woman, she was in her mid-40s probably, is she made a mention, when I was talking to her, and she's like, yeah, sometimes I feel this AA is like cultish. We talk about it. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people feel like it's cult. And I said, AA is a little cultish.
Yeah, it can be.
Right. That's what I said to her. Like, I said, don't think like, oh, it's not working for me because this is the way I feel. Like, no, that's a legitimate feeling. That's why I wanted to tell her, like, that's legitimate. Right. But I told her, like, but it could save your life. Yep. Right. Even if it feels that way, it can still save your life. So, I'm pretty honest about AA. I mean, there's good stuff, there's bad stuff, mm-hmm. There's stuff that I don't care for. When I was at the meeting Thursday night, this guy came in. Hey, they mentioned, anybody coming back or noon? This guy raises his hand and he starts to ramble a little bit. Like, this is just the opening of the meeting, right? Yeah, I'm coming back and it doesn't work. And the chairperson sort of cut him off gently and nicely, like, so he can get the meeting started. And this guy got so pissed up, he got his jacket and he walked out. Oh, he cut me off. I'm like, all right.
I want to fight you.
Right. He's not even that. He's like, he just wasn't ready, right? He didn't want to be there. And the first thing that he could get out of there, I mean, it literally was 2 minutes into the meeting that he was already, Jack was gone and out the door. It takes work. It takes putting up with some stuff that maybe you're uncomfortable with, And again, that's our brains aren't ready for that, right? Coming back, like our brains are. Listen, I talk about it all the time. When I came back early on this time, I shared. I feel like I'm crazy, and then I shared like, oh, that's because I was. My brain was a mess. I was crazy, and I needed to give my brain time to heal. And then try to figure out how I cope with some of these things that I didn't know how to cope with, and to have a life. It took a while. It's still stuff I work with, but it took a while for sure.
I'm going to do a new segment here. I'm just thinking off the top of my head because there's sometimes things to talk about that don't fit the topic or recovery and stuff, and it's called the meeting after the meeting. And from time to time, we'll throw in something after the end theme there if you want to hang out. Today will be one of those things. I'll leave that as a tease for you, Steve, because I thought of something I wanted to talk about, but it's not on topic. AA is very imperfect, and the reason it's imperfect is it is only as good as its members,
right?
Because there's no constitution. So if you go to a real shit meeting, go to another meeting. I know meetings that I'm not going to because I don't like those people.
Right.
And I don't like their program, and they are very culty of you need to do this or that will happen, and you're going to do it my way, and I'm going to beat you over the head. Doesn't work for me. But you can also find, like, there are people who are very directive, and there are guys like John. You said early on, one of the things that's great about John is he's not. Unless you're really messed up. If you're really messed up, he's going to beat you over the head. But for the most part, he's a very encouraging person, and he comes from a sponsorship tree that looks at encouragement first.
Right.
Of reach out of, I can't do the hike. You can do this.
Yeah.
I'm there with you. You know, there are times I've needed help from John to fix something in the house. And very often he is good at saying, I'm not coming there to do it for you. I'm going to make you do it.
Right. He is.
But you got this. All you need is this tool.
Yep.
Call me if you need a hand walking you through. You got this. Yep. And I learned those lessons of it is more about what is possible and not what is not. And you need to, that is what works for me. There are some people who have issues where I need to be beaten over the head. And although there are other options for recovery, let me be clear for those who are going to mishear this. There are other effective ways to get sober. I would say the program that has the longest success rate and is most well known is AA. That success rate, in a sense, is low because it's like 3% or whatever. Mm-hmm. If you do follow this and you commit to it, you've got a very good shot of staying sober. It at least is a recipe. And before AA, there was nothing. It really was nothing. Right. Now you have something, and it's what's well known. And psychologists and doctors will recommend it because it's the thing that has the best track record over a long period of time. So there's something to be said with that. And there are ways that you can make it your own if there are certain things you don't like. Because there is also that take what you like and leave the rest.
Right. And you can. And I know a lot of people, again, the old timers that we laugh at and we make fun of, they don't like to hear it. Oh, if you don't do it this way, if you don't do that, you don't do this. Man, you can just come and hang out with the fellowship. Right? You can. And,
yes.
And you know, I said it last week, maybe when we were recording, that somebody said it at a meeting I went to. You know, surround yourself with good people and give it time.
Yeah,
that's it. Like, I mean, it is as simple as that. You know, and I remember fighting years ago with people on social media about this saying, don't drink and go to meetings. They would say, that's not the way. You can't do it. You got to do steps. You got to do this. You got to find God. No. Don't drink and go to meetings. And then you'll find your way. Right? I mean,
the only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking.
But and that's the whole point. And I always say, like, one of my benefits since I've come in this time is, like, I didn't drink. There's lots of times where I was acting poorly, that I was mad, I was upset, that I didn't think I want to be married in this relationship anymore. Like, all those things have come, like, I'm a human being. Like, I felt like I wasn't getting my share of life. I wanted to run away. You know, I still have this thing. I mean this today. I still have this thing where, like, I just want to go buy a small place up New Hampshire so that I'm in the woods and I just walk out my door and just go for a hike. Like, I still today. I'm like, oh, if everything goes bad, that's maybe where I'm going to head. Like, I'm not interested. It's funny. I'm not interested in heading south to a warmer place. It's like, no, let me out. I love the cold weather. And still part of my head says that to me. So just don't drink and find your tribe. That's the word I started to like. Find your tribe. And just hang out with them and make sure they're good. Make sure they're good. And I tell people all the time, I'll introduce you to my tribe, and you could have them. We'll take you in. You'll become part of that tribe if you want, or you go out and find your own tribe. Because it's what I do. It's what I do. It's how I cope. And you know, when in doubt, I go to a meeting. That's it. I'm like, 'cause I'm bound to hear something that I like. You know, I went to this, it was a speaker meeting. This woman spoke for just about the whole meeting, which is unusual these days, but she did a good job. And I just loved it. I got there, heard some stuff that was great. No big aha moments for me, but I always see a couple people that I know, say hello. And to me, I mean it. This day of, with our face in our phones, I tell my wife sometimes, you know something? I'm going to go to a meeting just to get away from my phone. I do. Like, it'll chew up an hour and a half or 2 hours of driving and getting back and forth to a meeting just to get me away from my phone, get me sitting on the couch, TV. Usually for me, it's a sporting event on that I'm barely paying attention to while I'm messing with my phone. And it's like, I'll go to a meeting, hang out there for an hour and a half just to eat up some of that time. So, I don't know, something that works for me.
I have a different way of looking at that. There's not always something I like at a meeting. Many times there's something I hear that makes me think.
Yeah.
And if I don't like it, it challenges me.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So I redid the website. If you go to soberfriendspod.com, it's a little different. It's pointed to the Substack. That saves me almost $300 a year. And I think the purpose I had the website for has changed. I'd rather you go to the Substack anyway. So soberfriendspod.com. That brings you to the Sober Friends Dispatch, where we have some writing there of some good stuff, some resources, which I think you're going to like even better. But you can always email me at matt@soberfriendspod.com, and also social media all over the place. That's what I'm going to talk about after the show ends. But until that time, we'll see everybody next week. Bye, everybody. All right, Steve, I don't know if you have seen the Diddy documentary on Netflix.
No, I don't.
I haven't seen it yet, but I've seen a lot. And the thing that caught my attention is the stuff about 50 Cent on social media.
50 Cent in his Farmington.
Yes.
Where
he
having sex parties in his Farmington mansion.
He did the Diddy documentary.
Oh, okay.
And
he produced it?
He produced it.
Yeah,
and
okay. I'll have to check it out.
He was purposeful about doing interviews, promoting it, only on places that he knew the prison had access to. So, and I saw that he's been pissed off at Diddy for 20 years. And I've seen a lot of stuff about holding on to resentment.
Yeah.
And like fading into 50 Cent. And it's like, nobody can hold a resentment like an alcoholic, not even 50 Cent.